And welcome to Real Talk live streaming right here in Northport, Florida. I've got a very, very special guest and a really good friend. On top of that, guys, for all of 10 minutes, maybe. Pretty close to, what, I think 20 years now?
Yeah, it's good.
20 plus?
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time.
I've got Mayor Pete Emrich. How are you doing there, sir?
Good, good. Beautiful day out there.
Absolutely. So what's happening? Just give a quick overview before we get into any questions that people may have. What's happening on the dais right now that people should know about?
We're moving forward with budgets, trying to get everything wrapped up. I had a discussion with Jerome a few weeks back in one of my one-on-ones to have him research possibly going to the rollback rate, which I know that hasn't been discussed quite a bit. You know, we are making cuts within the different departments and trying to move forward. And, you know, it's a very, very tough time for a lot of the citizens out there, you know, especially on fixed incomes. You know, we don't know what's going on with property taxes till after the election. They haven't given us any type of idea on how they would replace that money. They say, no, if it passes, then we'll figure it out. And it's, you know,
That's a big bucket of money to
it's very wishy-washy. Yeah. and you know, not knowing what your perspectives are until after everybody votes, because everybody's going to vote more than likely saying, yes, I want to save money.
Right.
But that money's got to be replaced somehow, you know. And, you know, one of our biggest concerns is, you know, it can't affect police, fire, you know, but it will affect the general fund. And a lot of the police budget is under the general fund. So it's going to affect us one way or another.
So the caution is kind of what you guys are doing now. But I'm going to throw this at you because we've talked about it multiple times. We really haven't had a rate increase at all here. And we're not looking at one now.
No. And the thing about it is, too, is, you know, you look at it on both sides of the coin. Yes, the millage rate has stayed stagnant, but in other people's opinions, it's like, yeah, the millage rate stayed the same, but my property values went up. So it did cost me more money in taxes in the long run, but that was not us. That's on your property value going up. But still, I understand their meaning on that. Yeah, it cost me more.
Right. Well, and all well and good, but without having the rate increases, we've managed to do a lot of things. But is it tougher this year than it has been in the past? Without the millage rate increase?
No, I don't think so. I think that you know, a lot of people out there, you know, stay within your means, this, that, and the other. And I've said that all along to Jerome in one-on-ones and stuff, and say, hey, you know, we've got to get this budget down. We've got to be able to have a working budget. Last time I was mayor, we didn't have any increases in any of the districts or anything. But we've, you know, in certain, you know, like solid waste, that's gone up a little bit, road and drainage, and you know, fire, those are all different districts, and they have adjusted. Fire, for one, you know, especially with more population coming, we're going to need new fire stations. We're going to need new firefighters. We got to be able to pay for all that, you know.
What would you tell the people gearing up for next year? Because I know that you're going through it this year, but you have a sense of what we should prepare for next year. Not necessarily the Ron DeSantis situation with the taxes, but just here local. What's your sense locally as the current commissioner and / mayor? How do you feel about next year already? Because you have to have a gut instinct.
Well, that's sort of a loaded question.
It is
because we have no clue what the elections are going to bring.
You're right.
You know, you could possibly have 2 brand new commissioners on the dais that either A, know what local government is, or B, have absolutely no clue what local government is. And they're going to have to have their learning curve pretty much immediately when stepping on that dais. And going forward, you know, I don't know what that scenario would bring. I really don't. So it's hard to accomplish, you know, give you an answer on what next year is going to be like. Now, if, let's say everything stays status quo, they don't get rid of the property taxes, we stay where we're at, we're going to be staying on a steady line moving forward. You know, hopefully no millage increase. I'm hoping that possibly we can even fit in a decrease this year back to the rollback rate. Jerome is researching that to find that number right now. And my main concern is about the individuals on fixed income. You know, they've struggled and they still struggle, and there's no extra money coming in for them, being elderly and this, that, and the other. So they're sort of stuck in a box. And you got to think about that aspect too. Now, your working class, they're struggling to put meals on for their families and this, that, and the other. And it is tough times everywhere. And, you know, going through this budget process, we already told Jerome ahead of this process, you know, we wanted to see a minimum of a 5% decrease on all of the different departments and be able to, you know, get the same things accomplished. And I know they're making cuts, and he's made cuts. And right now, as of the first meeting for the budget, we did minor assumptions. We haven't taken the budget at the max assumption, which should be, you know, 12% ish like that. We're sort of working on a budget at 8%. So hopefully there's some leeway in there to where we could actually have a workable budget, cutting it back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I don't hear any other municipalities even bringing that up or talking about it. I mean, look at Sarasota County. They're in a financial jam up there right now, and they're trying to make ends meet. And, you know, they've had cuts, layoffs, and stuff like that. So
we haven't had any layoffs, though.
No.
And are we projecting any?
Not as far as I know at this point. Usually what they would do, and when we did have discussions years ago, I wasn't on the commission, but I believe it was the crunch of 2008, what they were trying to do was, rather than have layoffs, if anyone was close to their retirement age, let's say they were going to retire at 30 years and they had 28 years in, maybe the best scenario was to pay their FRS for 2 years and allow them to retire early with their 30-year plan. Instead of paying them, you know, X amount of dollars for a salary, you just paid their FRS input, and then they were golden for their 30 years. So it's a different play on things. I don't see anything yet, but then again, with property taxes, who knows what that's going to bring. That's, you know, I can't say no for sure, but I can't say that we've discussed it. We haven't.
Yeah, well, it's hard to discuss something you don't know much about.
We have discussed freezing positions that are vacant, you know, and possibly eliminating positions that have been vacant for, let's say, over 6 months, you know, stuff like that. If we haven't filled them in 6 months, what the hell do we need them for?
True. The listening audience, if you have a question, thoughts, concerns, please feel free to go ahead and post any question you may have. I'm looking to adapt in. I've got to reach for it. So if you see me move forward, there's usually a comment. But feel free to post a question or thought or concern, or even, hey, keep doing a good job. We'll take those too. With everything that's happening with the budget, is any update on Price Boulevard from staff yet?
No, I mean, it's coming as best as it can.
You come across that way when you came here today?
No, I do not. Yeah. I'll do Sumter and I'll do Cranberry, but in between there, right. I don't really hit that stretch too often.
I've ridden it. It's really not as bad as what it's made out to be, but the less we stay off of it, of course, that traffic flow is even better then.
Right. But we've got so much going on with the interchanges and price and, you know, getting ready to expand into that Hillsborough, you know, roundabout there, and Hillsborough being repaved. Right. There's a lot of stuff, and it happens.
We have to coordinate that, don't we? With because isn't Hillsborough half Charlotte County and half ours?
And it usually comes down to, well, when we got the money, we'll go ahead and do it, and normally we're waiting on them.
Right.
But you know, I'm not placing blame or whatever. They try to stretch their dollar out as much as we do too, and you'll notice where our side may have a lot less potholes than their side. But you know, it's getting done, and it's the same with Chancellor. You know, that's Charlotte County and Northport as well. So both of those roads are shared.
It's an interesting scenario. because you can definitely, if you drive down Hillsborough, you can actually tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, blatantly on the pavement side of things.
Right. And,
So-
and we've done resurfacing down through there in certain bad spots and stuff. But, again, I'm not blasting the county, but that's on their side. So they got to take care of it.
So we've got elections coming up.
Yeah.
You're terming out.
Yep.
How's that feel?
And that feels great. It really does.
You didn't think that a long while back, but now that you're getting towards the end, is it a different feeling?
Yeah, well, it's a different feeling because I'm getting close to the end.
Right.
And I could say, well, I completed my commitment and I can move on to bigger and better things, or just retire and tell the wife I need an allowance. I don't know.
That would work.
Probably not in her mind.
No, I was going to say, we always get to this time of year, and a lot of people say that you guys are in the pockets of the developers, and I know you personally, and seriously, I know all of you guys personally. None of you guys are in the pockets of the developers.
This is the funniest thing, especially that's why I get so many kicks off of Facebook, because they really have no clue in the big picture, because they say, oh, in the developer's pocket. Go back and look at all of my campaign money paperwork. Not one developer on there.
Right.
All local businesses, local people. Not one developer ever contributed to any one of my campaigns.
Right. Well, and let's even go let's go a route further and say, if you did, that doesn't mean you're in the pocket of the developer. It just means they gave you money.
Right. And there's certain developers out there that will say, if any candidate comes to us, we will automatically give them money for their campaign.
Right.
Not saying that's a great practice, but you could have both. Let's say you have a Republican and a Democrat and they're running for the same position. They'll give money to both people just so that they can go out there and get their words up,
Well, and I maybe I look at things different. I see you guys, I watch you guys, the growth of this city. You don't have to be in the pocket of the developer. The developer already owns their land.
Right.
And they're developing it based on what it was set out to be, maybe even before your term.
Right. And the thing about it is with that, you got property rights, you have state statutes. And that's why when we have a lot of different discussions on the dais, when it comes down to if they can do this, now, if they want a waiver or this, that, and the other, that's where we can challenge it and say, no, we're not going to give you a waiver. You're not going to be able to do this, because that's part of the legal proceedings. But if they're not asking for any waivers and it's zoned that way, this, that, and the other, boom, it's done. It goes up. We have absolutely no say, or we'll put ourselves into jeopardy into possibly multi-million-dollar lawsuits with those developers. And again, what is that? That's taxpayer money that you're going to lose in a lawsuit.
Right.
So why would you even do that?
Right.
If it was free, let's challenge it every day, but it's not.
There's a counterbalance to a lot of this stuff. And I know that as citizens, people, they say a lot of things, but they say a lot of things that don't have a grounded belief or a grounded structure within. And I say that because I've been accused of dark money. I promise you, I've never taken dark money before. I even had to look it up to find out what it was. That'll tell you how close that was. But that statement by itself is counterproductive to a lot of people. It's counterproductive to me because everything I do is a volunteer.
Right.
As far as the radio shows and the live streaming and different things like that. So when you're accused of doing things that flat out you're not doing, but people on social media go down this path, how have you dealt with that? And I know you have as a commissioner, but you're getting near the end of your term. How have you dealt with all of those types of things?
To be honest with you,
yeah.
I look at, and I very rarely, I'll go every once in a while and try and get an update. But there's one site out there that I don't really even go to because it's just so much negativity. Everybody's on that bandwagon, and the leaders of that bandwagon are just looking for relevancy between the citizenry. So they create whatever story they want to create.
Right.
They twist it in whatever means they want to. So basically, when it comes down to that, I consider the source, turn my head, and walk away. Now, let's say I'm on a different site and you got these citizens with different concerns and stuff like that, people that aren't associated with the bandwagoners.
Yeah.
You know, you take that into heart and go, well, why is this individual having, you know, an issue with X or maybe Y or whatever the case may be? And I'll go ask questions. You know, I'll go ask Jerome, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? I got an email this morning. I haven't had time to respond to it. After the show, I'll go home and I'll respond to it. But I got a gentleman out there, and I'll forward the email to Jerome, and he'll get staff involved in it. But he's having issues with a rooster next door. And, you know, it may seem uncanny, but, you know, we allow the chickens in the backyard and stuff like that, but a rooster is not allowed. And this gentleman or his family and him and his wife are, you know, getting woken up in the morning and late at night and stuff. And I guess that's what a rooster does. I always seen them, you know, cackle in the morning. I didn't know they did it at night, but I know that they're the protectors of the hens.
Right.
So they're trying to divert whatever type of
any
predators.
dangers.
Yeah. But, you know, it's still not allowed. He hasn't, in the email, hasn't gotten anywhere with staff. So, you know, I don't have any control over staff. I cannot direct staff. No commissioner can.
Right.
So I go to Jerome, and especially if I get, that's why when I talk to anybody, send me an email. It gets passed on to the city manager. This way they've got addresses, names, who to contact, this, that, and the other. So it goes to Jerome, and Jerome goes, okay, I'll get staff on it. Boom. And then it's handled that way. I don't get involved at that anymore after that. But I also say, give me updates.
Feedback.
Has this been settled? What took place with this? It could be, and I'm just using this as an example because that was today. It was a rooster. It could be parked cars. It could be, you know, a lot of different violations out there.
We've had a lot of changes to the LDC, and there's a lot of things that happen now get reported differently. But I liked your comment that you're not the one to engage a lot of times after, because that's not your role.
It's not.
So
and that's why we got jammed up about all this crap a few months ago, because we really are not allowed. We can talk to staff. We can talk about regular happenings. Hey, how was your day today? How you doing? But once you cross that line and say, hey, why didn't you mow that little section over there? Now I'm infringing on Jerome's job. And that's the job of the city manager. We set policy. He takes care of the day-to-day.
He's basically the CEO of daily operations, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So he's in charge of all the daily operations. Now, he may not have a hand, let's say, all the way down into the mowing.
Right.
That's why he has
managers.
You know, he has managers, supervisors, directors. And it's a chain of command.
How is that defined? Because I talked to one of the commissioners, and he said when they were directed, the city attorney said that they can do whatever they want. Well, that there is some restraint to that, right? Or is there not?
Yeah, there's supposed to be restraint to it. I mean, you know, that's why. And again, a lot of issues came up over it. Should we be able to talk to staff? Yes, we should. We could, in my opinion, I think we should be able to ask staff like questions like, how's work going? You know, are you happy with how things are going? Stuff like that. But when you get into directing that individual, that's where the line is crossed. So, hey, how do you like your job? You know, how long have you been here? This, that, and the other. That's a simple conversation that should be had by everybody. You know,
it's interesting because before, I know you've had ties with the city. So before you became an elected official, did you know how that operated? Did you already know that because of the buildings at City Hall?
I did. And the one thing that I wanted to just add on to that is we do a Northport University.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So citizens can go in and talk to different staff members. They're given presentations, like they'll go through the water plant. This works like this works like that. This is how this is done. Commissioners should have that same access. Let's say they never went to Northport University, but they come on board. Maybe they should be able to ask questions like that. Not
Right.
why did you do this, or you better do this, but how does this work? And then you're only explaining something. You're not actually directing them.
Do you, and you've been through this process a lot now for, well, you're going in, what, 7 years?
I'm at 7.5.
7.5. So, you know, for 7.5 years, you've gone through elections, you've watched people get put into office, elected into office. But prior to that, have you seen this to be like I don't want to say problem, because it's not a problem. It's a learning curve, I think. When you come from the private sector and you go into a commission spot, there's a learning curve that comes with that.
Oh, absolutely.
And even you, I'm sure that if you look back at when you first got elected, there was a learning curve to what you had to adapt.
Because it was different than what I was used to. Now, me and computers, we don't get along very well, never did. And the first thing they did was they give us an iPad.
Right.
So I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to work this iPad, and it was before a meeting, and I told Vanessa, she was sitting next to me, I said, I'm about ready to throw this iPad through that back window back there because it's so friggin' aggravating. She goes, don't worry, in a couple of weeks you'll have it down pat. Yeah, still 7.5 years later, I still have to have help with it. So, right. And it's just my stigma, you know. It may not be anybody else's, but it's just me.
Well, but it's still a learning curve.
Oh yeah, and
there's other things
how to
too.
hit the buttons up there and go back and go forward and this, that, and the other, and that'll come in time, you know.
So how does it feel looking back at what you guys have accomplished in 7.5 years?
I think we heard enough of everybody's just kicking the can down the road. And we heard it multiple times. And then once we got some teeth into some of the projects, you know, we had to make price happen or else the price would still go up. Right. You know, the ULDC was a nightmare, and it took, I don't know, 3-4 years to rewrite it. And it was pretty much stagnant. Got that done. You know, we fought for hospitals, you know, over 20s.
Amazing.
Many years. And that's coming. Right. And it's not because of the commission. It's the proper timing. It falls hand in hand.
Rooftops, different things like that.
Absolutely. Everything plays into that. And I do appreciate being there for these times. And it's like, yeah, roads are buggered up now. I have to admit, but this stuff should have been done years ago when the prices were a lot cheaper. Yep. But it didn't.
Well, we've got Price Boulevard happening, and that's going to be a project for decades.
Yeah. Because
Price Boulevard is a long road.
Well, yeah, and this is only phase one.
Phase one. So and I think probably the most chaotic part of it. With the 4 bridges. And I just had the conversation the other day that those bridges all had to be reworked after the flood.
A lot of them did.
And so they had to be refortified. And, you know, everyone talks about the hospital as going to cause a lot of flooding. Well, up until Ian, that corner really didn't flood a lot. Others did. But,
well, the other side did. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Lady Slipper area and stuff like that. I used to travel in airboats down through there. I took Governor DeSantis down through there when we got hit by Ian. And he was just, he couldn't fathom it. He goes, wow, this, and we were cruising past houses that were built up. They were. And the water was almost cresting at their front door. If we would have gotten like another ½ inch of rain, it would have been inside.
I sold back there, and I actually, my good friend Joe, he was back there, and I actually took a John boat back with a guy who came down from somewhere up north. I jumped in that boat by myself, didn't know who the guy was, and he dropped me off, and he did come back and get me and Joe and the dog. But Joe's house was built up,
Right.
and it did have water inside, so it breached even the newer builds that were built back there that were raised up. It did breach them. So I remember jumping into that water. That was the scariest part I can even fathom doing, because you didn't know what was in the water.
It was funny because when we're cruising through there, we had stopped and we were just, all the engines were shut off and we're just sitting there, and I was explaining to the governor about this, and this. And then all of a sudden you heard some chatter behind us, and we look over, and here comes this family, and they're like in a canoe on the road, and they're paddling by, and they're like waving, and the governor goes, okay, what are they doing? I said, probably a neighborhood barbecue going on down the road a little bit. He goes, he just started laughing. He goes, yeah, he says, it caught him off guard.
How was that in his perception when you were with him on what happened that event?
Oh, we took him there, and
I know he went out into the estates also.
Yeah,
and
well,
it was a mess.
That was out. We went there via airboat all the way out through there, took it, and then came back in, and then he went down and looked at Country Club Ridge and stuff like that. And I will tell you this: it was devastating, and he knew it was devastating. And the very next week, his wife was down here opening up a FEMA response line out at Shannon Staub Library. So that's how important it was to him to be here in our ground zero.
And it was. I got to tell you, I firsthand, I was part of the announcement of all that stuff, and then went out on the road and reported a lot of it and got a lot of film. I still have data worth.
Sure.
It's unbelievable what I captured. But, we lost 4 bridges. We lost Price Boulevard, that event. We had police and fire rerouting, doing different things to secure. I've talked to them on these live streaming events that I do. And, the coordination that it took even that day, because I was during the flooding, I was in communication with you.
Right.
About different roads and keeping you guys informed of what I saw out in the public. There were a lot of dangerous situations during that event, and I don't want to talk about those, but I want to go back to and circle back to the hospital for a second, and Price Boulevard, because those bridges had to be reworked because of that. Also, the hospital, in order to move into that corner, they're just not water shedding on to everyone else. They had to adapt everything, didn't they?
They'll have their own retention ponds and plans and everything.
And they had to base it on that flood.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is they're in all development, you're not allowed to be more invasive on flooding than what it was before.
Let's see. Sean said a few years ago, the city told all of us that because of the size of the CW and CS project, that we would be eligible for federal, state grants and would be significant lower connection cost. And we haven't heard anything. So city water, city sewer, that has been a hot topic, not just for you guys, but up the state. Mm-hmm. And that's really a directive from the state more to correct?
To a certain degree. There's some very miscommunication going on at this point right now for what everybody received a letter out there stating that they got to hook up to the city water lines because it's a looping project. Okay. City water, city sewer is state mandated. It is. We did receive grant money. We have, when we go out and we do expansions, the cost is significantly lower. It came out to $30,000 when we first started discussing it. And as the commission, I believe we got it down to like $5,000, $5,400, something like that. That's what it was going to cost the citizens at that time or moving forward. This project that they received the letters on is a looping project that helps with keeping the water good. You don't have to flush the hydrants, this, that, and the other. No grant money was ever looked into, but, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail as of today because it will be on the agenda tomorrow. I talked with Jerome last week on Thursday, and I told him I wanted it on the agenda. He says another commissioner had already asked to have it put on the agenda. So I said, okay. And then I got home a little bit late Friday night, or I was watching hockey, one of the two. And when I got done, I checked my computer and they updated the agenda, but this discussion was not on it. So the first thing Saturday morning, I asked him, I said, hey, what happened to the agenda item? He goes, utilities was working on their presentation, this, that, and the other, going through numbers and this. It will be updated on Monday. So I checked to see if it had changed before I came over here. It was only 2:00 in the afternoon, so it wasn't on the agenda yet, but I was assured it will be on the agenda for tomorrow. We normally try to not amend the agenda within 48 hours, work hours within a meeting, but state law states 24 hours. So they were working on it last minute to get it on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting. If, as I said, I haven't been in contact with anybody. So if anything was to happen on that, then we would have a special meeting for it. And, you know, the numbers out there, you get fake book going on, and they were talking, you know, prices from 30,000 to 180,000. So it's, you know, it's just ungodly how they create their own scenarios out there and try to just, you know, rile people up. You know, one of the famous ones out there is they say the city gaslights them all the time. Go to that site. You're gaslighted 24/7.
You are. And that being said, the even when you get when you guys have done town hall meetings, you've had staff there. It isn't necessarily you guys doing all the talking, and it isn't even, you know, our city manager, Jerome Fletcher, doing all the talking. It's staff.
Well, and there's a reason why. We're there to set policies. If it's something that has to deal with staff, that's Jerome and his staff's responsibility to explain it, not the commissioners. You know, yes, we're there to, hey, do you want anything changed? Or, you know, this, that, and the other. What are your main gripes? We're here to listen to those. What do we have to look forward to doing in the future? But if you're having a problem because you're getting nailed by code enforcement because your grass is 14 inches tall every single day, all the time, I don't have anything to do with your grass. It's code enforcement and staff. So
you can take the complaint, but you're going to hand it off.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And another thing about, you know, when Sean had brought up about the grants and stuff like that. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because we're going to have a discussion on it hopefully tomorrow. But this is just my opinion and my opinion alone. We did go for grants for the water and sewer expansion. Granted, this is a looping project and it's only water. So in my mind and logically, if we're going to do water and sewer and we got grants and we're looking at around $5,000, why wouldn't this be the same price? We're still expanding water to new clients. It's still expanding the need, even though they're calling it a looping project. Why wouldn't it be the same price? And then whatever schedule they're on for sewer or whatever the case may be, you've paid it. Now sewer's included. Let's say it's $5,400 for the expansion. Why shouldn't it be $5,400 for this? And then when sewer's available, you get that added on and you've already paid for it with your $5,400.
Right.
That's the way I look at it logically.
And there's a lot to be said because everything we're talking about now, everything is a projection right now.
Right.
There's nothing set in stone, right?
No, and there's no money, no grants, no nothing. So what they're doing is, and this is another question, and just that's in my mind, and it'll probably come up. You know, if we put that water out there was a development out there, Cedar Grove, in the school,
Right.
Woodland. If that water was put out for them, then, and this is just my thinking, maybe in the future, if a development, and this would slow down development a little bit too, if a development wanted to go in, hey, you're going to pay the price to run all the water and sewer lines out there, and that's your cost for having your development.
Right.
I am not going to, well, it's not just me. I would not vote in favor of putting a line charge to every homeowner that line went in front of their house. No, you want your development now, you pay for the line. They can pay their capacity fees and their hookup fees. Line's yours. Why should we have to give it back to that developer?
Right.
You needed it for your development. You're making money off of your development.
Right.
Why should the citizens have to help you make money off of your development?
So isn't this why we like the developers coming in and helping?
They'll put in infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure. Yeah, because it's more of a strategic play. One, we're not mandated yet. That's maybe a bad word, that the state and federal government, of course, want us to have water and sewer. They want a soft septic and well.
Yeah, the septic is for leaching purposes into the ground table, and now they're also with the water because our aquifers are depleting,
right?
And they're not filling up as fast as they could. I mean, how much rain have we gotten lately?
Right, no.
Not very much.
Yeah.
So it's being depleted, and it is to save what little resources we do have without polluting them or draining them.
And one would say, and I'll just, since nobody's commenting, if you have a question or comment, please feel free to do so. But one would say to you, stop building, stop allowing the build.
Yeah.
How do you do that as a commissioner? How would you stop people from building on the properties that they own?
There's really not much you can do. I mean, they've outlawed moratoriums within the state. Again, the state has taken over on that. So you can't say, no, we're not going to do any more building. If you got property rights and we stop you from building on your property according to the way the zoning is, we could face a lawsuit. And rather than saying, okay, build your whatever you're building, you're compliant with all the laws, you're doing all the inspections, you've done this, that, and the other. Okay, you're good. Why would we want to step on that and cost taxpayers millions of dollars in a lawsuit?
And that can happen.
Well, of course it's going to happen.
And has it happened yet?
Not that I'm aware
on the books.
Not.
But we haven't really said no either, right?
Right. And I don't know if that's ever happened prior to me. The only thing that we did do is, and it was all legal. And I remember when we had the 7-Eleven that wanted to go in on Cranberry.
Right.
They wanted to have variances and waivers saying that they could have their car wash operating 24/7. They could, and whatever else they wanted. My main concern was they had underground fuel tanks and everybody in that area was on well. What if one of those tanks ruptured and it polluted that whole area over there? It's just, that was part of my thinking, but no, we didn't have to give them waivers and say, and we didn't. And they said, okay, well, then we're not going to do it.
Right.
It was, if they were to do it according to the way it was zoned, this, that, and the other, there'd be a 7-Eleven there, but they wanted more.
Right. So there's a huge amount of responsibility that comes with being a commissioner. I've got to ask this question because it came from Indiana, from my wife. and I did cheat a little bit. It's the only thing I told you I was going to ask you, but I saw Elaine last Friday, and of course she was representing Kiwanis this weekend, and I know she's running. But my question is, does she tell you how to vote?
No, that doesn't happen.
Do you? As a husband / commissioner, have you voted the way she thought you should vote on every single.
Oh, not on everything. I mean, there's certain things that we've agreed upon. There's certain things that I've stood my ground on.
Right.
And yeah, it's been put out on Facebook. I told her if she wanted to do something, go do it, run
Right.
for office. But the way my thinking is logical, follows the law. You know, we follow the state statutes. We follow whatever the rules are in place within the city.
Right.
If she wants to go out and around them, because she has a lot of things to do with special event permits, and she hates the way that that's set up.
Correct.
Not my wheelhouse, hon.
Yep.
You go talk
Go
to
do your
Sandy.
thing.
You go talk to Jerome. Have a good day.
Yeah.
That's not my battle.
So I'm going to flip this a little bit. After you're out, if she were to get elected, how much influence do you think you're going to have over her?
I don't want any.
Well, I'm going to go further. I'm going to say you have a very slim margin.
Yeah, I don't want any.
Because I believe you're both independent.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've talked to both of you enough independently to realize that there's no thumb on either one of you.
Oh no, she lets me do my thing. I let her do her thing. She's very, very busy in the nonprofits and Kiwanis, and you know, she's a reporter, so she was always all over the place, you know, following stories. But she has a mind like a steel trap. She remembers everything.
Yep.
I do not. So it's, you know, I explained it to her the other day. I says, you know, when I go to a meeting, I brush up on what's going on in the meeting, you know, ahead of time. And then after that meeting, it sort of gets locked way back here. I'm preparing for the next meeting. I'm preparing for my next decision. To hold stuff back here, it just doesn't happen anymore. You know.
But did it? No, I'm just teasing. I'm teasing you. But you know, it's I hear stuff on the street that yeah. You know, it's not good, bad, or ugly. It's really just a lot of people have set guides, I guess, on what their expectation is. But you guys operate independently. You guys are like, even the nonprofit stuff, you're not neck deep into that.
I know. I mean, over the years, I maybe volunteered to cook hot dogs a couple times at a few of their events. I've always helped with the fishing poles for the kids,
right,
for the thing before Father's Day, the fishing tournament. Other than that, that's her gig.
But you're connected with a lot of motorcycle clubs, and
that's my gig.
That's your gig,
right? And
she's not.
No, she'll go. We'll go once in a great while. Like I ride with the Legion Riders, Post 113 out of Ratapa, and every once in a while, if she's available, she'll go on a ride with me.
Right.
And if she doesn't go, I don't go on long rides without her, because she doesn't like me not having adult supervision. So
I can, yeah. Well, I've been your adult supervision, and we've done our fair share of fun too.
Oh yes, but it's yeah. I mean, we do our things. You know, I'll do mine. She does hers. I'm usually in bed a lot earlier than she is. She's always up typing. And you ask anyone that's associated with Elaine and what Elaine does, and they will tell you she is nothing like me.
Right. Nothing.
And that's what the naysayers do. Oh, it's going to be the same thing. Oh, it's going to do this. Oh,
that's why I brought it up, because
they believe that. They follow their leaders. Take me to your leader, you know, and it's childish. It really is. A lot of the stuff out there is so ridiculous.
I've seen some of her posts, and she's done a really good job at defending her independence.
Sure.
And it's ironic that I pay attention to a lot of the people who are picking back at her.
And this is a prime example.
Go ahead.
Prime example. Years ago, the same site, I would go on and report and this, that, and the other. I was called a liar. I was called this, that, and the other. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to be disrespected. I'm the one sitting on the dais. I was the one involved in this vote. I was the one that did this. Y'all don't want to get it straight from the horse's mouth. You're on your own.
Right.
And I haven't been back. Now, with Elaine, I tell her, stay off that site. Don't give them fuel for the fire. That's all they want. The negativity, this, that, and the other. It's all bullshit. Stay away from it. What's she doing? Diatribes. She's on there. She's doing it. She's doing her thing. And it's like, okay, hon, you just gave them enough air for about 3 more months of bullshit.
Right.
And she's like, well, you do you, hon. I'm not telling you not to. I said, you do you.
Yeah. And I think we've all been through the gamut on different groups and different policies and the way people handle themselves. That being said, I still think she's come out of this with a good outlook, so to speak, on where she's at and what she wants to do. And
nobody's going to stop her.
No.
And she will do whatever she can to fix a wrong that she feels wrong, whether she's a commissioner or not. She's never been a commissioner for, what have we been, like 30 some years in Northport. She was never a commissioner.
Right.
She's always been a reporter, but she got stuff done, or at least opinions changed in the minds of some commissioners when they were thinking about it going this way. And she said, well, did you think about what would happen if it went this way? Oh, you're right.
I think she's going to have if she were to be elected, which I hope she is. And I haven't met the other candidate yet, but I think she's going to give a different perspective just because of all of her years as a reporter.
Oh, absolutely. I think so.
And I don't know anybody else that's ever run that has that outlook. That they all have. Everybody's kind of independent on how they came about, but for being a reporter for all those years and then become a commissioner, that is totally not a norm for us.
Right. But she's seen. I mean, we were on buses going to Tallahassee to get a high school here years ago. She's always been promoting what this town needed. You know, she's promoted needing a hospital. We had the con in place, certificate of need. That had to go away because it wasn't proven that we really needed it, being so close to Port Charlotte, Venice, Sarasota, with all these multi-facilities up there. It just, in the state's mind, it wasn't needed. So,
well, that was a rig job, but that's a whole nother ballgame.
But anyways, that's gone, and now we've got like 3 hospitals coming. So
right.
it's,
I was part of Peter Bartolotto's group years ago, and that was back in 2008, where we literally were talking about the university for the city. We implemented that in. We talked about the Cocoa Plum and how it was going to be built reverse.
They wanted it reversed, so it'd be canal front.
Yeah. Which would have changed the whole outlook of that whole complex, which I wish they would have done because it would have been unique.
You could still have it, canal front. I think it was at that time, I think it was like $1 million adventure to switch it around.
Right.
You could have the parking in the rear with walkways going up to the front, and then you'd walk up and down the canal. But again, the developer didn't want to spend that $1 million.
Right. Yeah. And we kind of all knew, like, we wanted what we wanted.
Right.
And we all worked really hard at it. But,
I think it's because Peter wanted to do little kayak sales out of one of the corner buildings. No, I'm just teasing.
No, but he had the vision for something.
Oh, like absolutely. That. No, he's always had great vision on a lot of different things throughout the city. I've met with him many a time.
Sure.
And
well, it was a great group because
to
have that kind of an influential group, that was different than the social media stuff we have now. That's out there. That's not the same thing. Those meaningful groups that have high impact on elected officials, because we had county, we had state officials come in, we had the builder actually come into that event. It was awesome, and we learned so much from it as citizens. Mm-hmm. Anybody who was involved. Now, did we get what we wanted? No.
Right.
But the funny thing is, we have the university now that's being run by the city.
But you had the opportunity to have your voices heard.
It was a great incubator.
Right.
It really was, because a lot of things happened. And I don't know that I think we would have ended up in the same places that we are today, but we were talking about being influential with hospitals. Well, we've gone from 0 to what, 4?
Yeah.
We've got a mental health hospital here.
Yep.
That we didn't even talk about And you know, we've got a fire chief who supports it, and police department does too. But I've talked to Chief Titus about it, and that partnership that they have for their firefighters is phenomenal. And you know, to have that connected to our city, it gives us a whole different solution for a lot of things that happen in the different departments.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. We're at 5 minutes till. I promised my wife I would ask that question, so I hope she's thankful. Oh, Bobby, let's see.
What the hell does he want?
Oh, let's see. What's your take on Coffeegate? All right, I'm gonna let you take that one.
Oh,
Coffeegate,
where Elaine allegedly tried to buy a vote with a cup of coffee. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because you know they slammed her, and I'll even mention the name. I believe it was Joan Garcia and Anka Vanka, whoever that may be. That's a fake profile, but we all know who that is,
right?
And but that's okay. They put it out there that Elaine was trying to swindle him with votes for many years. Politicians, candidates have gone out and say, hey, let's have chat over coffee. Let's do this, that, and the other. Elaine never said she was going to buy the cup of coffee. She just said, let's go have coffee. Let's talk. And it's just funny that her opponent does the same thing and is having a meet and greet at a coffee shop off of Toledo Blade coming up within the next week. And there's nothing but crickets. Nothing but crickets. Wait a minute. It's okay that you can bash one person. You can create your own filth about this one person on this concerns site. Have at it, people. You know, that just shows your integrity. That shows where you stand. It's all about the negativity. It's all about you wanting control, and it's all about you being jealous. Have a great day.
Well, I hope that answered your question, Bobby. Nice to see you too on the page. I appreciate you allowing the sharing of this content throughout all your pages. You do a great job moderating. And
don't forget, he's got the best kick-ass karaoke going on.
Yes, he does.
5 hours.
5 hours. I've been out there for it. It's actually a great time.
Yeah, when I get out there, he puts the hook handy.
Yes.
He doesn't
get off the stage.
He doesn't want 5 hours.
He does a great job, though. He's very active and in his community out there in the estates, and he does a phenomenal job. So thank you for what you do, Bobby.
Absolutely.
And you know, you make a big impact for a lot of people.
Sure.
So that's the other side of this is as a commissioner in just a couple of minutes, but you know, I've listened to all 5 of you guys, and you can go back now for 20 plus years. I've known just about every one of you for 20 plus years, and
a lot of the stories have changed over those years because you had different priorities, different stuff going on, and their reasoning why they did what they did.
It was different too, but I haven't met really anybody who had a commission seat that had it out to ruin the city. Everybody had their every single person, no matter what, whether I like their politics or not, whether I like their voting or not. I've not really met anybody that interpreted it. I'm going to ruin the city. Nobody's doing that.
No,
as a commission, everybody's doing their best with the way they think they should vote and their interpretation of all the information. Correct.
Right. But what has happened though, quite a bit in certain individuals, it's not just one, there's many individuals that have said, oh, I'm going to get on this board, or I'm going to get on the commission, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and it's going to be for my greater good and for all of my buddies out there. And within a few short time period, they'd end up quitting because they couldn't follow the rules, the laws. They weren't invoking any change whatsoever. That's happened on the commission level. That's happened on board levels. And now they're all in that one site, all complaining about the city when they had an opportunity to help change it, but they decided to quit.
Well,
and move on.
yeah, you know, you've got.
So that's why I consider the source, and I laugh at about a lot.
Well,
of stuff.
yeah, but so I say this a lot to people. If you want to get involved, then get involved.
Sure.
If you're looking to be destructive, not that you're going to earn the label, you're just going to be gifted what you tout.
Sure.
The label. There are a lot of people who've done some things to be influential on change that may be part of that group, but still have a different viewpoint than that group does, and they've been influential along the way. I'm not going to name names, just like I'm not going to name names on that group, but there are a lot of good people in this community
Sure.
that are really not looking to tear everything apart, and that, I think that's the biggest lesson that people need to realize, is that you can't be an expert across the board. You can't.
No.
I'm not. I'm definitely not. I've learned a lot from a lot of the people who go to City Hall and talk, but I've also learned that everything that they say is not necessarily true. There's that balance between all the inner workings of law and structure versus communication of whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
There's two different balances there, because you can say all the things you want to say. That doesn't mean you're going to get it done.
But the thing about it is let's look at what Jerome has implemented. He's implemented a lot more communications between City Hall, be it staff, City Hall, the commission, whatever the case may be.
I agree.
Out to the public, but yet he gets bashed for having too many people in the communications department, when they have no clue that there's maybe 4 up in City Hall, but others are branched throughout different departments. And that's part of their job, is to supply communications. Let's say from Public Works,
or police department, fire department.
They're not a 12 communication team hub stuck in Jerome's office area. They're spread out throughout the city. And why wouldn't you want an individual from Road and Drainage giving you the updates from Road and Drainage?
Well, and you know, everything's got a specialty to it. The aspect of thinking that all departments are run from Jerome by itself. He's the overseer. He's not running every department.
Correct.
So he is the overseer of all those department heads that are out there. And then there are other managers and their assistant managers that are within. That's a huge responsibility. And for somebody to lump that into Jerome did all this, that's a tough call.
Go next time you see Jerome, say, Jerome, I'm going to know the names of every individual in Public Works that's on a lawnmower. Can you give me all their names?
No.
Give me all the names of the EMTs that we have over in the fire department.
Not going to happen.
He has to oversee the big
and I think
picture.
Chief Titus could probably pull that off.
He could.
Yes. Even with that being said, I don't think he could go down. He's got deputy chiefs.
Sure.
And so
he'd be like, when that new guy sneaks.
Yeah, that's right. Did we hire him? So I find it ironic that we hold our. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing that we hold everyone to a higher standard than they should be. I think that's not bad, but I also think that we have to realize as citizens that there's some restriction to that.
But you can't hold them so high that it's unrealistic.
I agree.
You can't.
I agree.
I mean, nobody's walking.
But you have to be able to make that adjustment.
Nobody's walking on water there.
Right.
So everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
Believe it or not, I've made a few.
Well, I've gone from a few minutes to go to 4 minutes after 4. So, hey, we've live streamed. Anybody have a question real quick? I know there's 10 of you out there that are with us right now, and I appreciate that. Please like and share the page. We do this every Monday from 3:05 to 4 o'clock with different actors along the way, so to speak. Today was Mayor Pete's turn.
Who you got next?
And,
do you know?
The city is going to have a department head on next week, and then we go right back into the rotation of police, and then fire, and then commission.
Good.
And I think Barbara Langdon. Hold on one second. I'll give you a heads up on who our next next commissioner is. I think I even sent that to you. Hold on. I'll pull that up real quick. The schedule is Vice Mayor Barbara Langdon will be on May 18th, so you can join us then. It's been a real honor and a pleasure to have you on, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it and learned something today about the conversation and anything you want to say before we leave.
Vote Elaine.
Cheater. Cheater. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you being on, and I appreciate you coming across and across town and being in my living room today.
Anytime.
Awesome.
You know, we were going to do cocktails at Beef, but
Yeah.
I guess, you know,
I will promise you this.
I guess it's the wrong day because
you're on September 21st, and everyone listening right now, we're going to do cocktails I'm going to set it up at hopefully Beef O'Brady. So look for it in the very near future. And you guys come out, and we're not buying. You are. So we're not getting the fight back, but come out, sit with us, enjoy a conversation at Beef O'Brady's, and get involved.
Well, it is the wrong day for it. Today's 420. You're supposed to indulge in other things, not cocktails.
You know, that's Mom, I didn't have that conversation on the air. So I appreciate your time, though.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Anytime.
All right.
You
guys have a blessed day. I want to thank my likes and my loves out there. I got Cheyenne, Emrich Davis with a love, and William C. English, Mr. Chuck, and Jeremy Ansel, who liked it also. And thanks to the sponsors that are out there. We had a great hurricane event on Saturday. If you guys don't know, we're heading into hurricane season. Get your supplies ahead of time. Get them loaded up and ready to go. And hopefully we can have another 0 on the board this year.
We didn't hear anything from Chuck today. So, I mean, I
hope he liked it. So he
liked it, but no questions.
No questions. All right, Chuck.
No question Chuck day.
Yeah, that's hey, newbie.
Yeah.
That's a new day. Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate you watching,
Chuck.
buddy. Talk to you soon. You guys have a great day.